Welcome to another tutorial, and this time it's going to be a series. I'm not sure how many parts there's going to be, but we'll see. It's going to be a small series about inventory and items. So I'm going to start with this one, and at the end I'll show you what I have planned for the rest. So in this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to have a modular inventory. So you have the main panel, and inside you can have multiple smaller panels, which are the inventory. So if I click on any chest here, it will open the chest inventory. And if you click on others, you will have them added to the same UI. And yeah, you can change the number of slot in the inventory. It will increase in size if it has more rows. So in this one, we'll work on the inventory. And in the next one, we'll work probably on the items. Or if you have any suggestion or would like me to add functionality, you could ask it and I might add it to another part of the series. So let's start that from scratch. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do is change my editor layout, column. And the first node I'm going to do is main scene. And in my main scene, I always like to have 3 imported nodes. So the first one will be the game. So I'll use a 2D node. This would be where I would place my levels or worlds. So I don't change the scene. I would only instantiate my scene in the next one will be the managers. I'll make a few of those in this tutorial for the inventory and items. And the last one will be the UI. So canvas layer, and this will be UI. Let's start with the UI, the panel itself. I'm going to import the asset I made for this. I'm going to create a folder, inventory, and inside I'm going to import my assets. And since those are pixel art, I'm going to select them all, go in the import tab, preset, and 2D pixel, and re-import. If you don't do that, they're going to be a bit blurry. So the first thing I'm going to do is the inventory container. I'm going to add a child node of the UI. It's going to be a 9-patch rect. So this one, inventory container. So this one, I'm going to use the main panel. I'm going to put the main panel in the texture, zoom in there, and place the dotted line where I want my corner. Okay, that seems good. So then I'm going to center my panel. I like to have it in the center. So center. Now I can scale this and it will keep the correct ratio for the corner. Now if I want the side to be a bit nicer, I can go in my axis stretch and change this to tile. So that would be the main panel. Now there's going to be a title on that. I'm going to add a new 9-patch rect and call this one title. And I'm going to use my title PNG and I'll do the same for this. Place the dotted line. Now I can scale it and put it at the top. For this one, the layout, I'm going to do center top and I'm just going to move it up. And inside this, I'm going to add a label. And this one will be full rect. And I like to make it align center and v-align center. Now, I'm going to change the font. I'm going to go in my main folder and add a new folder for font. And in here, I'm going to import a font I found online. So the font I'm going to use is Arcade Pix Plus. I'm going to change the font right there, custom fonts. I'm going to create here a new dynamic font. Click on it, open the settings, and the font. So the font data, that's where you put your TTF. There you go. Now the size, I'm going to put 14, and I'm going to change the color. So custom color, font color, and I'm going to click the pick a color. I'm going to put the darkest gray I have here and just make it a bit darker. There. Now I can change the size of my back panel again, move this top part a bit so the inventory is centered. Now I can center this again. All right, the last thing would be the button to close the inventory. Here, inventory container, add a child node, texture button. And this one, you have a texture property right there. I have all the 4 buttons disabled, hover, normal, and pressed. So then I can take this and layout. I'm going to put it in the top right. All right, so now let's add the inner inventory module. Inside my inventory container, I'm going to add again another 9-patch rect, and I'm going to add the inner panel there. I'm going to do the same again with the dotted line, move them where you can cover all the corners. Then I can resize that. This one, I'm going to make it align center top. Now here, yeah, I don't want the inventory module to be directly inside inventory container. I'm going to add a control node. And this one, I'm just going to call it inventory container. Inside inventory container, this will be the container that will hold the inventory. This one, I'm going to make it full rect. It will scale with the main panel, and I'm gonna make the size to be inside the panel. So this one, now I can do it again, center top, and if you hold Alt while resizing, you can resize on all sides at the same time. Now, inside of this, I want to have a name for this inventory. I'm gonna have a small divider, and under that, there would be the inventory slot. This here is the inventory. Then inside of this, I'm gonna add a texture rect. So this one will be the small divider. So I have the bar PNG here, put that in and bring in it. This one, I'm gonna do center top. So then I'll move it down, and over this, I'm gonna put the title. Again, add a label as a child of this. And this would be the inventory name. And this one will be center bottom because it's child of the texture rect, which is the small divider. And let's change the font for this. So here I'm going to change the custom font, dynamic font, click on it, settings, and font. Go in my font folder, put the font in there, and this one, divide the size by 2. Oh yeah, let's change the color also. Custom color, I'm gonna check that, and use the color picker. I'm gonna pick a dark, yeah, dark brown, kind of make it a bit darker, and center all of this. Here, center, center, and let's just move it up a bit. Now let's add inside this inventory the inventory slot. Inside inventory, I'm gonna add a container. So let's add a control. So this one will be slot container. I'm gonna do the same as the other, full rect. I'm gonna scale it down so it fits inside the panel. So now let's add the slots. This will simply be a texture rect, and I'm gonna get my item slot here and put it in texture. And let's see if I add an item to the slot. I'm gonna create a new folder, items, and in there, I'm gonna put my PNG. So before, I'm gonna rename this texture rect for inventory slot. And then I'm gonna add a child. I'm gonna put another texture rect, and let's just see the tree icon. So yeah, if you don't change it to 2D pixel, it's gonna be blurry like this. So if you select all of your PNGs and go in preset, 2D pixel, and re-import, there. Now it's sharp and nice. If I want to have this tree always in the center, now I can use some other control nodes. So in inventory slot, I'm gonna add a child node, and I'm gonna add the center container, and I'm gonna put the item inside of this one. Oh yeah, the center container needs to be scaled down, so you can lay out and make it full rect. So it's gonna take all the space in the slot, and the item will sit in the center. If I want to add more inventory slot, right now if I select inventory slot and do Control D to duplicate, it stays there, and I need to, if I lock it and I manually move it, yeah, I would have to place them manually. That's not what we're looking for. So the slot container, I'm gonna change type, right click on it, change type. I'm gonna select the grid container, click change, and there. So now if I select my inventory slot and duplicate, it placed itself at a different place. To change that, you select your slot container and change the number of columns. So if I put 5, duplicate, there, 5 nicely placed inventory slot. And if I take my inventory module and scale it up, I can add more. All right, let's fiddle a bit more just so it's centered and all nice. What I like to do is to change my custom constants on the slot container. So vertical separation and horizontal separation. All right, I'm gonna remove a bunch of inventory slot. Okay, I'm gonna place everything how I'd like them to be, and then I'm gonna transform all of the component in scenes. I'm gonna save all of them as scenes, so then I can instantiate them when I want to. So the first thing is this would be my item. Let's rename this item and create in my folder item here. I'm gonna create a new folder, right? I'm gonna move my image in there. So in here I can have my scene. So item, right click, save branch as scene. It's not much, it's only the image, but later in other parts, I'm gonna work on the item and they're gonna get a lot more. So items and save that here. So now my item is safe. I can delete it from here and it's gonna be here in item. So if I want to instantiate an item, I can simply drag it in the inventory slot center container and it's gonna be placed correctly. Nice. Now this inventory slot, I need to save branch as scene 2. This one I'm gonna put it in the inventory folder. So inventory slot, save. So now I'm gonna remove it. I'm gonna take my inventory module, this one, save branch as seen again. All right, inventory, save. I'm gonna remove this one. And the last one, inventory container, right click and save branch as seen. inventory container. There. So we're left with this. Now, let's see how to add code to that. So the UI scales and you can pick up the items and move them around. So yeah, let's start with the code, and I'm gonna start with the item because the inventory will use the item. I'm gonna go in my inventory folder and I'm gonna clean up a bit. So sprites, and let's move all of those in the sprite folder. And here, let's create a script. Oh, well, it's for the item. So let's go in item. Here, let's create a new script. Item. Template, I'm gonna select no comments, and it's gonna inherit from texture rect. Well, you can do it like this, or you can simply open the item and click on it and attach scripts, or click the small icon at the top here, and then it's gonna inherit by default the type of the nodes. So no comments, item, create, a bit faster, and it's already attached to the item. So here, the only thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add class name, item, and I'll come back later to add code to it. So then I'm gonna go in my inventory, this one, the module that will be reusable. Inventory, add a script, inventory, 9 patch rec, no comments. Let's create that. So this one, yeah, I'm gonna create a class name too. So this one will be the class name, inventory. For this one, I'm gonna need a name for the inventory, because if you open multiple chests and they all show up in the inventory container, this name will be displayed. So for that, I'm gonna export a string, inventory name. I also need the size of the inventory. So how many slots you want in it. So here, when you change the size of the inventory, you want it to scale. So if you have only 5 slots and it's only 1 row, then it's okay, it won't scale. But if you add more than 5 or like 25, you need to scale it a lot. I'm gonna use a set get. It's only if you set the value of size, it's going to call the first function here. So if I do set inventory size, and if you get the value, so if you do inventory.size, it's going to call the get function. But if you don't put any, so if here I would have the get function, but if you don't have anything here, it's just going to get the value. So here, I know that I'm going to need this, and I'm going to receive a value. I'm also going to need the slots, which is going to be an array, and it's going to start empty. I need to get the node in the tree here to be able to set the label for the title and the slot container to add the slots in there. You could do the $, get slot container, and do what you want to do with it. But if you do this and you change the name of this, if I change it container, then in the code it's gonna break, and you have to come here and change everywhere you place this. You need to change that to the new name, or if you put it inside another node, you have to need to add the path. So yeah, it's a lot of manual stuff. So the other way is to get it at start. So let's say right there, unready. Oh yeah, and if you have it at multiple places too, you have to change it at all the places. So if you put it at the top here, so then title would be there once, so you can use it everywhere. And if you change your name, you only have to change it once. But there's a even better way, and that's to export a node path. So let's say I export title path. Then what this does is when you click on your inventory, here I have title path. So I can assign my label here, and okay. So then in my code, this would be equal to this thing. So then if I change the name, it won't change there. So here I could do title is equal to get node title path. And there you go. So this would not break. Godot editor will deal with the path, and then it's going to get the node from that. And you can use your title everywhere. But then you can mix those two in one line. If here you do unready, var title path is equal to get node title path as label, because this is a label. I want to get the label. Yeah, let's remove the path. So here what you get is when you set the variable in the inspector here, title, assign, label, okay. So this title variable is a path, but unready is going to be equal to get node, and it's going to get the path, and it's going to become a label. It's kind of a bit special to understand, but yeah, that's what it's going to do. And then you can use your title everywhere. So as long as you simply set it in your inspector right there, it's going to be always there. The only way it could break is if you change the name of your variable. So if I do title like that and save, then it's gonna clean the variable because it's a new one. But yeah, that's the only thing that can break it. Next is gonna be the slot container. If I copy this one, this will be the slot container. This one I can only set it as a control. Yeah, I don't really need to access the value of the grid container. If I save this, now my inventory, I have slot container, assign, and slot containy. So now if I change the name of this container and click on the inventory, it's still there. So that's marvelous. All right, now I'm gonna do the set inventory size. So yeah, when you set the size, I'm gonna prepare the slots. I will need the inventory slot resource. So I'm gonna load it at the top here. So inventory slot resource is gonna be equal to preload. And inside here, I need to put the inventory slot path. So I can simply click on it and drag it. So this one, inventory slot, drag it inside there, and it's gonna put the path. So here, I'm gonna set my size. It's gonna be equal to the value that I receive. For S in size, this is gonna be the index. The new slot will be equal to a new instance of the resource, and I'm gonna add it to the array. So here I'm gonna have to control the size of the inventory, but I think I forgot about one thing. If I go back, if I save this and go back in my 2D view, let's say I have my inventory container and I add an inventory to it. So inventory container, add one. The thing is now, if I want to add another one, I have the same problem with my item slot. So for the item, I used a grid container, but for this one, I'm gonna change the inventory container, change type for a VBox container. And now it's squished my inventory. So what I'm gonna do is go in my inventory, and I know that this is the minimum size I need. So here in rect minimum size, I'm gonna set it to 40, the same size there. So now if I save this and go back to my inventory, it's the correct size. And then if I just duplicate my inventory, it's gonna be placed underneath. And if I can manually scale this to see what it's gonna look like, it'll look like that. And let's change the separation. I'm gonna set that to 2. That's what I'm looking for. So I can remove my inventory and put that back. So for the scale, I'm gonna change not the size, but the minimum size. Rect min size, the y value is gonna be equal to 40, which was the minimum. And to that, I'm gonna add, yeah, if you have more than 5 slot, that's when I resize the inventory. So if I do size divided by 5, and size is a integer. So if I want to be sure that it's gonna give me a floating number, I'm gonna divide it by a floating number, but I need to seal it. So if my size is 5, I'm gonna get 1, but then I don't want to add it. I want it to be 40 plus the other rows. So if I get 1, I don't want it. So what I'm gonna do is just simply negate it, go -1. So if I get 6 slot, it's gonna be over 1. It's gonna seal it to 2 -1. I'm gonna be left with 1. Then all of this, I need to multiply it by the size of an additional row. So I'm gonna have to go and take a look at how much it is. So in this inventory, let's say I want to add slots, 6. So let's see, this is 40. And if I increase it in size until it's the same, it's 62. So 22. So here times 22. So that's pretty good for the sizing and this. But now, yeah, when you show the inventory, the slot here, it's only an array. So on ready, I'm gonna add them to the tree. Since the size here is exported in the inspector, it's always gonna be set when you start your game. This set inventory will be called before ready. The slot array will be filled with the inventory slot. And here in ready, for each slot, you can add them to the slot container. And we can set the title, inventory name. There you go. Now let's do the function for the picking up the item. Let's make some place. I'm gonna have a function, add item, which will receive an item. We need to find the first available slot for S in slots. If there's not an item in the slot, then we'll set it. But for that, we'll have to add a function to the item slot, add item to slot, and then we'll return. Yeah, well, let's do the code for the inventory slot. So inventory slot right there. Let's add a script. Inventory slot, texture rect, no comments, create. So this one, I'm gonna need the item container, I'm gonna go here and copy one of those lines so I can have item container. And this one will be as control. So I can set it here, assign, it's not really complicated, but we never know if later I'll change that. The other thing I'm gonna need is the item itself, and I'm gonna put it as item. So let's have a function, set item, and this one will be the new item. And the only thing I'm gonna do here is item is equal to new item. You could simply do an inventory here s.item is equal to item. But later, if I want to add other stuff in the function here, then it wouldn't be the place to do it. So here I'm gonna do set item, item. So this script is done. And now in ready, what I'm gonna do is if there's an item, add it to the item container. So I'll do the other function right now. So if you want to pick the item from it, from the slot, it's gonna be pick item, item.pick item, because we need to modify stuff on the item. So we'll go on the item to create this function later, but then we need to remove the item from the item container, remove child, and we'll remove the item. And the item is now null. There's nothing in this item slot. Oh yeah, and also I'm gonna create the class name here, inventory slot. Then let's do the other function, which is gonna be put item. So if you put an item in this slot, those functions are used mainly for when you click on the slot. So put item, the new item, the item is equal to new item. I'm gonna add child. We'll call another function that I'm gonna add later, put item. Let's go in item now to add those function. Prepare that, go in there. For here, I'm not gonna need ready. And yeah, I'm gonna need a variable to know if the item has been picked. And then the function pick item is true. And I'm gonna have put and pick is false. Now, when I'm gonna pick the item, I'm gonna move it around the UI and the texture rec will be under my mouse. But if I want to click with the item on my mouse, I need to deactivate, well, let me show you here. You have your mouse and there's filter. Now it's pass, you have stop and ignore. So when you click on a control node, it will capture the mouse input. So if the item is underneath the mouse and it follows it around, you want it to be ignore. So you want to the click to go through. So we'll set the mouse filter to be equal to control mouse filter ignore. So then we'll do the same here, and this will make it pass. So when you put the item down, you want to re-enable it. So if you click on the item, it will capture the click. So that's it for the item script. Let's put it back in the inventory slot, and that should be it for that. We have the item, we have the inventory, and we have the inventory slot. Now let's do the inventory container. Let's click on it and add a script. Inventory container, I patch rec, everything is good. For this one, I need the inventory container to add the inventory later. In there, I'm gonna add a array, a bit like the inventory itself, which has the inventory slot. This one will have the inventory that are open in it. So current inventory, do an empty array. First, let's set the inventory container here. We want to change the size of the inventory based on what we want to show in it. So let's say you have a chest that when you click on it, when you open it, it asks the inventory container to show the inventory. Then we need to listen to a signal or something. What I like to do is have a signal manager to listen to all of those. I'm gonna create a new folder here, and I'm gonna call it managers. And in here, I'm gonna create a new script, which is gonna be signal managers, and create that. And in here, I really need two signal. So I'm gonna create the open inventory. Signal inventory opened. So I'll know when an inventory has been opened. In my inventory container, on ready, I can connect that signal. I'm gonna put my signal manager in a auto load, so I'll be able to access it anywhere. So for that, it's in project settings. You go in the auto load tab, the path, you select your manager, signal manager. It will name it signal manager with capital letters, add this, and that's it. So now if you use this name in your code, it's gonna work. So here, signal manager dot connect. I want to connect to the signal inventory opened. I will connect it to this script, so self, and I'm going to connect it to the function on inventory opened. And what I'm going to do, those that are going to emit this signal will send an inventory with it. So later, when I do some test button or chest, I'll show how to use that. But that could be emitted from anywhere in your game. So then I'm going to create that function on inventory opened. And here I'm going to receive an inventory, which is of type inventory. Now, what we want to do is when you open it, we want to add it to the current inventories. And we also want to add it to the tree. Inventory container, add child, and inventory. We also want to show it. If it's hidden and you click on a chest, you want to show the inventory container. So show. And there's also something. If we click on a chest to open it, and we click another time, we don't want to show the same inventory twice. So here we'll say if current inventories that already has this inventory, well then we'll just return. Now we also need to change the size of the inventory container. So for that, we'll have to know what is the minimum size. And when we add an inventory, we add the size of that because the inventory itself will deal with its own size, as we saw here. So the size of the inventory will be calculated by itself when it's ready. So then in inventory container, we can use that. Let's go in here and let's look at what's the size of one inventory in there. So inventory, I need the Y value. So this one is 40 and this one is 58. So this one should be 18. So the value of the inventory without, if there's nothing, so it's if it's the first inventory that we'll set, if current inventories that size is 0, then we'll set the size to the minimum to 18. And then when I set everything here, I can add the size of the inventory. Rect size dot y. I'm gonna plus equal inventory dot rect size dot y. But then I need to add also here the inventory container, the separation of 2 pixel. So here inventory container, and here I need to get the separation. And to do that, you need to call get constant, and you need to give it the name. So separation, and that will give you 2 for now. But if you change stuff, this calculation will always stays. All right, so that's when you open the inventory. Now, let's say you want to click the small X to close it. Yeah, or you move away from the chest or something, you want to close it. I'm gonna have a function close, and in here, yeah, all the inventory I need to remove all of them. So for for all current inventories, the inventory container, I'll remove the child, and then I simply need to clear the current inventories. It's gonna be equal empty array, and then you hide this. Now, what I need is when you click the button here, I go in the node tab, pressed, and double click this inventory container. On text button pressed. Oh yeah, I'm gonna change the name here. I'm gonna call it close. So now I double click press, on close press. That's better. I'm just gonna call it close. There. All right. So this one is done. So now let's say you have 2 inventory module and there's slots in there, there's items, and you want to click on one item and bring it in the next one, next inventory. The thing is, the inventory themselves doesn't know about their neighbor or anything. We need a manager to listen to those signals and deal with the item function and the inventory slot functions. So let's do that. So what I'll do is a inventory manager. So let's remove those. So for that, I can go back in my main function. Let's save this scene. I'm gonna call it main. So I'm gonna go in my managers folder. I have signal manager. I'm gonna create a new script, which is gonna be inventory manager. And here, managers, I'm gonna add a node, and this one will be inventory manager. So I can add the script to this one. And now, the inventory manager will be responsible for the clicking on item and moving them around. I will need a way to show the item that you are holding right now. Back in here in my editor, in the UI, I'm going to create a node, add a child node, a control, which I'm going to call item in hand. And that's it. So when you'll click an item, the item will be moved in this node, so you can drag it around. And just to be sure, this node, I'm gonna put it mouse and ignore, just in case, because it's gonna be there. You can put it super tiny, but if you would click on it, it would catch the clicks. All right, so let's go back in my inventory manager and we'll get the reference to this one. We can do the same as those. A notepath ready, inventory manager. So this one, item in hand. This one will have an arrays of all inventories. Well, this one will be item in hand node because this is where I'm going to put the item, but it's not going to be the item. So here I'm going to have the item in hand. It's going to be equal to null when you start. This is the magic of the signal manager. When an inventory is ready, I want it to tell the inventory manager that it's ready. I'm going to add a signal inventory ready. So I'll get this signal and my inventory module. When it's ready at the end, I'm going to call signal manager dot emit signal inventory ready, and I'm going to send, it's going to send itself. So then back in my inventory manager in ready, I can connect that function. Signal manager connect inventory ready on this script self, and it's going to be on inventory ready. Function on inventory ready. I'm getting the inventory. Pretty simple. The first thing is just to add it to inventories. Inventories.append inventory. Now, what we want to do is for each inventory slot in that inventory, we want to connect some signals for slot in inventory dot slots. So for each slot, what we'll do is slot dot connect, and we'll connect the signal mouse entered to self to this script. So we'll create a function for that, and we'll call this function on mouse entered slot, just to be sure that we don't confuse that to the inventory manager itself. So we'll have to create that function. But yeah, here we'll send some arguments to this, the slot itself. So then when we receive the function here, we'll have which slot has been entered. For now, we'll pass. The other one we want is the mouse exited. We'll connect it to, and this one will take also the slot. And there's a last one. Let's just copy this one. No. The mouse exited, I don't really need to know which slot it exited. I simply have to hide the item info, which I'm going to have to create. When you mouse over the item, you want to see the info. So that's what it's going to be used for. And the last one is GUI input. We want that for when you click on GUI input slot. This one will get which slot has been clicked. So let's create those. So let's create a item info just to show it. I'm going to create a new scene here, and I'm going to do a user interface. So change that, change type for a 9-patch rect. I'm going to go and get my sprites, and I'm going to take the inner panel for now. Oh, yeah, it's pretty big. Let's simply change the dotted line, and this is way too big, so let's scale this down. Something small for now, it's gonna do the trick. Let's do top right for the anchor, top left I mean, and let's add a title to that. What I can do is merge from scene, since I already have a title for my inventory container, and I'm gonna take this title and do okay. Brings this. I'm gonna go in my custom fonts. I'm gonna click on the arrow next to it and do make unique. So if I modify this one, it won't modify the inventory containers font. So now I can open it, settings, and change this size to, let's say 10. There, that's it. Now this is item info. I'm gonna create a script for this. Let's save it first. Save it in items, item info, tscn, save, add a script. So this one, I will need the item name as label. So yeah, when we want to display this item info, because in here in the main scene, if I get it, so item info tscn, we'll put it there. So item info will be in UI, and let's say I mouse over an item, I want it to appear next to the slot I'm hovering. The position of this will be set by the slot. So if I go in my script here, display, I'm going to change the global position to be equal to the slot itself, the rect size. Here, if I give this slot the type, inventory slot, I should have access to the autocomplete, so rect size, yeah, rect size. And then I'll add to that the position of the slot, global position. So it will take the position of the slot, which is the upper left corner, and it will add the size of the slot, so the position will become the lower right. And then, yeah, we need to set the item name is equal to slot.item.name. Oh yeah, we don't have the name of the item yet. Let's add that. So item, export a string, which will be the item name. You can't use only name. Well, I'm not sure if you can, but it's not recommended because this is the name of the node. So you should have something different. So I'm gonna use item name, and in item info, item.item name. Oh yeah, this is .text. Then we can show it. So that's it for the item info. And in here in the UI, we can simply hide it. And in my inventory manager, I should have access to that one too. So item in hand, and I'm gonna need item info. So yeah, click on it and assign item in hand and assign item info. Okay. So back to my inventory manager. When you enter the slot with the mouse, we'll do if the slot has an item, then show it. Display and slot. That's it. It will show it. Yeah, when the mouse get out of the slot, we just do item info dot hide. That's pretty simple. Now the big part is this one, the GUI input on the slot. So let's start if it's a mouse button. So if I forgot here, there's also event, which is a input event, and the slot, which is a slot. This one is if the event is a input event mouse button, input button, and the event is pressed, and the event again that button index is a button left. If you click on the cell and there's nothing, we don't care. We don't do anything. If you click on the cell and there's an item, you pick it up. And if you click on a cell and you already have something in your hand. So if you have an item in hand, you want to do something. And if you don't have something in your hand, you need to check else if the slot has an item. So that's the two first thing. And if there's an item in your hand, the two thing is if there's something or not below. If the slot has an item, you'll do something, else you just put the item there. So if you have an item in your hand, when you click on the cell, the first thing we'll do is remove it from the tree. Item in hand node, remove child, the item in hand. We don't delete the item in hand. We just remove it from the tree so we can add it to the item slot. If you have something in your hand and you click on a slot that has something, we need to keep a temporary item. So the item that is already in the slot will pick it up, pick item. The item that we are picking is the temporary item. We need to set its position to be on the mouse, but we also want a offset so you drag the item from where you clicked on it and not from the top left corner. So for that, we'll need to add a variable, which is going to be a item offset vector 2.0. We'll calculate it when we need it. So let's say here, we'll use the temp item and set the position, rect global position will be equal to the event.global position minus the item offset. So the item will be at the right place. Now what we need to do is set the item that we have in our hand in the slot put item, and we'll put it item in hand. And now the item in hand becomes the item that was in the slot, which is this one, the temp item, and we can add it to the node. So the item in hand node dot add child item in hand. That's it. So the else case is if you click on a slot that has nothing in it, then it's simply put it in the slot. Slot put item there. And then we set the item in hand to null because there's nothing in your hand anymore. All right, so that's for the case that you have something in your hand. Now, if you have nothing and you click on a slot that has an item, then we'll pick it up. Item in hand will be equal to the slot.item. Let's make some place. Here we'll set the item offset. So item offset is going to be equal to the event.global position minus the item in hand global position. So yeah, this will give you the difference between the upper left corner and where you clicked. So when you drag your item, it drags it from where you clicked. Next, you pick the item, slot.pick item. Let's set the item in the item in hand node. So item in hand node, I can copy this line. I'm going to set it to item in hand. So yeah, then I can copy this part and here, item in hand, and put that. We don't move the node, item in hand, we move the item itself. That's pretty much it. All right, so I think we could test now. First, if I start the game, I need to select the main scene. So let's go in my main source and main TSCN. Let's get that and start. So yeah, my UI is pretty small, and if I full screen, if I double click the header and make it full screen, it's still small. So what I'm gonna do is go in my project settings. I'm gonna go in my general tab. Yeah, I'm gonna search for display window, and the width and height, it's a bit too big for a pixel game. So I'm gonna divide that by 2, let's say. Divide by 2 and close. So let's see. The size is correct, but if I scale it, it still doesn't scale. So for that, I'm gonna go back in my project settings. I'm gonna search for stretch. Yeah, so in display window, okay, it's in the same. So display window, at the bottom here, there's stretch. This mode, I'm gonna set it to 2D. Aspect, I'm gonna put it to key. So now if I close that, if I start the game and scale, now I have my inventory. I can close it. Yeah, that's it. I can do anything else. So let's add some interaction to it. But before, I think I need to add items. So I'm gonna add some dummy items. So in my item folder, I'm gonna add a new folder. I'm gonna call it data. So I'm gonna put some items in there, and I'm gonna get my item TSCN and bring it in data. So this item will be the tree. So I'm gonna rename tree. And I'm going to add also in my script here a ID, export string or ID. So for that, my item here, ID will be tree in small letter, and the item name will be the name I want to see in the item info. So I got a tree, so I can duplicate this one, duplicate, and I'm gonna do gold. I'm gonna duplicate it again. I'm gonna have stone and duplicate one last time for crystal. So now the only thing I need to do is to swap their sprite. All my data is done. I have 4 items. Now, if I want to use those items, I would need to be able to instantiate them. I'm gonna show you the first way to do it. Let's go in my main screen. I'm gonna create a button to emulate a chest. So in my UI, add child button, normal button, and this will be chest. All right, pretty simple. This chest, I'm gonna add a script to it. It's gonna be chest, GD. All right, create that. Here, I'm gonna give it, this would be a chest in your game world. So I'm gonna export some variable. So I want the size of the chest. By default, it can be 1. I want a name. And yeah, this chest will have an inventory. So our inventory. And here I'm gonna have a init function, initialize. So function init, and in there I'm gonna have inventory is gonna be equal to a resource. I'm gonna preload, and in there I'm gonna put the path to the inventory itself. So inventory, I get the inventory TSCN and drag it in there. Dot instance. So he's gonna have the inventory module inside itself. And on ready, I'm gonna set the variable of the inventory itself. Inventory dot size is equal size. The inventory dot inventory name is gonna be equal to inventory name. Let's say I want to add an item to this inventory. What I'll do is inventory, and then I'll call add item, and I'll give it the item. But the item is a scene, so what I'll do here is I'll load an item. So let's go in item data, and let's get a gold coin. And let's do instantiate dot instance. So that should give me a inventory with 1 gold in it. If I go back in my 2D view, my chest here, I can set the size. Let's make a 5 slot inventory. The name will be cool chest. But now if I just start that and click on the button, nothing will happen. So what I need to do is in the script here, when I click the button, I want it to send the signal open inventory. Signal for my node, chest node pressed, double click on that, select my chest itself. So on chest pressed right there. I'll call signal manager dot emit signal inventory opened, and I'll send the inventory of this chest there. So now in theory it should work. And I forgot to set a node path. So in my item info, so item info here, select it, and inspector, item name, I didn't set that, so label. If you forget that, it will tell you that it cannot find null. And also I'm gonna hide the inventory here. So inventory panel, it's hidden. So start, open that, and click my chest. All right, my chest has opened. Now my input doesn't work, so let's look at that. Before doing that, I forgot about one function that I need for dragging the item. So here in the item manager, we need a function for input. In there, we need to check if the event is dragging. So if the event is a input mouse motion, so if you move the mouse and you have an item in hand, and normally here we would use the item picked, but we don't really need it, so we can remove that one. Item picked right there in item script, we can remove this one because we already know if we picked it, if it's in item in hand. So yeah, we can remove that part. And here, what we'll do is item in hand is going to be the position is going to be equal to the position of the event minus the offset. There. Yeah, this is not in it. This is input. Oops. And here we'll receive the event. All right, that's a bit better. Function input, the event itself, and then we look. So if we start the game, make it full screen, open the chest, click on it. Now it doesn't work because I think I forgot to set the inventory slot. I have the item container, which is over the inventory slot. And this one, the mouse filter, is at stop. So I need to put it at ignore. So it will ignore any clicks. So the click will go through and go to the inventory slot. So start again. So now let's open the chest. Click on my gold coin. Well, I can mouse over it, gold coin, click on it, and I can drag it around, put it elsewhere. All right. So that's pretty much it. Now let's try to add more stuff. I hope the video is not too long. The other thing is here, when you have your chest, if you want to add an item, you have to call this. So that's not really friendly. What I like to do is have a manager for my items, which only contains the information. So I'm going to go in my manager, add a new script, item, manager. And this one, I'm going to make it a auto load. So project settings, auto load, select this guy, item manager, open, add it. And inside my item manager, I'm going to have a onReady var items, which is going to be equal a dictionary. So I'll have the ID of the items. So tree is going to be preload. And in there, I'll have the tree data. So tree, put that there. And I'll have all the other ones. And the only function I'll have in here is get item. I'm going to take in the ID, which is a string, and I'm going to return the item instance. So now what I can do, let's say I go in my chest. Instead here of adding my item like this, I'm going to export an array of string, which will be the items in the chest. So here I'll do for I in items, I'm going to do inventory.add item, item manager get item, and I'll pass the I, which will be the item in the array. So then in my main scene, if I click my chest button, here I have items. I click array. There's two items. There's going to be a gold coin and a crystal. I can start, open the chest. I have a gold coin and a crystal. That's it. Now let's say I want to have two chests. I can duplicate this one. Chest 2, let's say it's a 15 slot. The items, maybe you want to have the items random. So what you could do is extend the script for the first chest. Yeah, I could do that. So let's do this, remove the script, add another one, chest, let's do chest RNG. It's gonna inherit from chest. Oh, yeah, it doesn't know, doesn't know it yet. So let's just inherit from button. Now I'm gonna go in my first one. I'm gonna create a class name, chest. So this one will extend chest. And I'm gonna export a number of items that you want to pick from a loop table. Export int number of item. I'm gonna have a function set item because I want to set the item in the inventory. So in my main chest here, I'm gonna modify this. So here I'm gonna have a function set items. In ready, I'm gonna call it. So since my chest RNG is inheriting from this script, when on ready, it's gonna call set item. It's not gonna call this one. It's gonna call the one here. So in this one, what I can do is for the number, a number of item, insert a random item. Inventory dot add item, item manager dot get item. And if I want a random item, I'm going to do items at the position rand I modulo the size of the array. Items that size. So if I have 4 item, it's gonna be 4 modulo a random number, random integer, and it will always get something between 0 and 3 because it's not gonna get the 4, and that should always be valid. That's it. So if I go back there, I have my chest RNG. I'm gonna click on it. So the size of this one, yeah, okay. Since I modified the code, I need to change it. So let's do 15. This will be a random chest. The items array, that's the loot table. So I'm gonna put, well, all the 4 item I have. So I have gold, I have stone brick, tree, and crystal. So if I start that, random chest, oh, I need to set the number of item. So let's say I want 10 item from all of those. So start that. Oh, here I've placed brackets, but I need to do parentheses. Oops, this. That's going to be better. So now, random chest. I have a bunch of random stuff, and if I click this chest, it adds to it. But yeah, I should move it so it fits in the screen. Item inventory, move it up, and start that. Open the first chest and open the other one. Yeah, that's pretty nice. And I think I'm going to show you one last thing. Let's say you want to have your player inventory. So for this, what I like to do, I'm going to get the inventory container here and then right click and do new inherited scene. So I'll get that and I can change some variable here. So I'm going to add an inventory in the inventory container. And for the script, I'm going to remove it and add another one. So inventory player, create that. Here, I'm going to get the reference to this inventory, get node inventory as inventory. And on ready, I only need to set the size of the main panel. Size.y is equal to 20 plus the size of the inventory. So inventory player, let's save it in inventory, save that. So if I go in my main scene, I can get inventory player and put that in UI, move that here. So that would be your inventory. I'm gonna assign, oh yeah, I need to go in here. Your inventory is right there. You can edit the property. So left pocket, the size would be, if it's your inventory, let's do 20. So save that. Here, the inventory container, I need to assign the inventory. And yeah, so if I go back in main, let's start that. So I have my inventory, left pocket with 20 inventory. So I can open my chest and pick up the item. Now, yeah, if the icon is going behind, that's because I need to change my order in the list here. Inventory should be higher. That's pretty much it. So you have your items, take them. If you have any question about anything, if you would like me to add functionality to that, let me know. I think in the next part, I'm going to show how to scale the UI, how to drag the windows around, and later I'm also going to show how to generate some item with interesting random stats, affixes and stuff. And later there might be even usable items. So yeah, pretty much it. If you want the asset and code for this, I'm going to have a link for a GitHub in the description below. Be sure to check that out. And yeah, if you're interested in those kind of things, you can watch me on Twitch, where I stream some game dev. And yeah, that's where I plan out those things, how to deal with stuff. And when I have a system that I like, then I plan out a tutorial. So yeah, that's a longer video than I thought it would be. So I hope you enjoyed, and thanks for watching it to the end. And for a bonus, maybe I can show you what I have in my game. So in the game I'm working on, I'm using this inventory module, so I can move around my items, and I have some interesting item generation, so towering weapon, a normal torch, I have some deed, so these are usable items, so I can right click on it, and I can build on my island. I have healing potion, I have chest, so inventory that I can put in to add inventory, more slots. So I might do a tutorial on this in a other part. Alright, that's all for today. It's already a long video, so yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time, I guess. Bye bye.